Well, howdy, YouTube family. This is Bolt CRNA coming to you again with another day's topic. It is your lucky day because I have Mr. Matt Vargo here, CRNA app extraordinaire, and we're going to be talking about how he became a CRNA, how he created his apps, and what he's doing in the future with his apps. So let's get into it. All right, guys, today I have Matt Vargo here, the #1 app developer in anesthesia.
Thanks for having me on here. My wife tells me all about you. That's a little concerning.
Oh, yeah, so his wife runs his social media account, and she is very nice. She's very interactive. She's always on everyone's CRNA sites talking and commenting and interacting, and very, very nice young lady. So
yeah, she says he's from Chattanooga too.
that's right.
Man, you gotta talk to this guy.
Yeah. So Matt's from Chattanooga. We're both from Chattanooga, Tennessee originally. Neither of us lived there.
I didn't grow up there. I grew up in Hawaii and California, but we like Chattanooga, so we moved there.
So tell me a little bit about what got you into nursing and what drew you down the path to becoming a CRNA.
Well, I started out in respiratory therapy. I got a bachelor's degree at IUP, Indiana University of Pennsylvania in Pittsburgh. I was working there, and then when Clinton was president, this is how old I am. They were going to change a health care called a Hillary Care. This is no joke. Everyone was worried about. It was like we're going to be the first Obamacare, and everyone was worried about getting laid off. So I thought, oh man, I better go to nursing school, protect my job. Yeah. So I went to nursing school, and then we ended up moving to Tennessee because DRGs came out. And this is how old I am, and you couldn't get a job that Tennessee was hiring. So my friend Mark wanted to come down. I will get you a nursing job. And when I graduated nursing, I just didn't want to wipe like fecal material, little phrase. So I thought, what patients have the smallest, fecal material? So I picked neonatal. Okay. And it's a little shallow, but that's what I did. It was a lot easy. One wipe with the 2x2, didn't gag. So I was a neonatal nurse. But when I was in Pittsburgh, I was an ECMO tech because I did ECMO adults and peds as a neonatal adult respiratory therapist. And that's when I did a few inventions. And then when I moved to Tennessee, I didn't really have very good grades, but I was published, and I had this invention. I found this because we're moving here in a month. So I found this stuff. And here's the thing I was showing. This is a pilot balloon line repair kit. Wow. So I was at a code in Pittsburgh once, and these students like accidentally cut the pilot balloon line. It was a really big dude on all these drips, and they couldn't reintubate him. He died. They didn't have a glide scope back then. Wow. So I thought, why doesn't someone invent a way to easily just inflate the pilot balloon? They had these old-fashioned ways. You had to go find an angio-CAD, and it took too long. So I just took a brand new, opened up an endo tube, cut off the pilot balloon, and put a stub needle at the end. Stick that in, and just reinflate the cuff. Wow! So I got it published, and they put like this big article in a respiratory journal. Yeah. So then I applied to anesthesia school because I saw people getting in. I worked at Erlanger, where you know all about. I said, I was working with these wives, or their husbands are going, but they all had like 3.8s and 9s. I said, crap, I got like a 3.02. I probably the lowest GPA, and my GREs were terrible. But someone said, you've done a lot. You're published. You got dual degrees, ECMO tech, and you should apply. So I went in there and I applied and got accepted. I got lucky. Nice. And I had an old roommate who had a dual degree, and he applied to 5 schools. He got accepted all 5. I knew a girl in West Virginia had dual degrees, bachelor's in respiratory nursing, and she got in every one. So I said, crap, I'm only applying to 1. And I did it. And they felt sorry for me. I probably broke the record for the lowest GPA ever. Wow. But, I graduated middle class. I wasn't a brain, I was like a late bloomer. There were people running circles around me, but.
How old were you when you went to UTC's CRNA program?
I didn't graduate anesthesia until I was 42.
42. Okay. Yeah.
I was really jealous. I'm jealous of these young Turks coming out 25 years old, making 6 digits. As a matter of fact, when I was packing, you know what this is? Do you see that right there?
That's home. Yeah. What is it? Is that your first house?
Tennessee. It's where my wife and I lived when I was a respiratory therapist doing the nursing. I was actually moved to Tennessee. It's so small and ugly. We were so happy because we were dirt poor. I wanted to fix it up after I got out of anesthesia school, and the people said, come on, Vargo, that's like polishing a turd. Why don't you move? So we ended up moving up to Signal Mountain, and went up there for a better life after I worked 7 days a week.
Signal Mountain, for those of you guys who are not familiar with Chattanooga, Tennessee, Signal Mountain is like where a lot of the rich people live, which is like up on the hill where people have like elevators in their homes and very beautiful like glass walls that look over this valley and mountains and stuff. Beautiful area, which he now owns a home in. So yeah,
Yeah, well, we bought in the inner part where the poor people
Mm.
live. Like the doctors and the anesthesiologists and the lawyers, man, they lived on the edge. I used to get mad because when I was Red Bank, you look up and you think, I bet those doctors are peeing down at us because they feel the vapor coming down.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Hopefully not.
so
So tell me a little bit about when you graduated CRNA school, you started working there in Chattanooga, right?
yeah, I broke the record. I was telling you, I was the first one ever from probably from most colleges to start working full time
Mm-hmm.
before I officially graduated as a nurse anesthetist.
And this is can't happen now, guys. So don't think that you can do this.
Yeah,
Back
what
in the day,
happened
they let you
was
do this.
back then they called them graduate SRNAs or graduate CRNAs, where
Mm-hmm.
you're allowed like a 6 month to a year to take your board. So you start
Mm-hmm.
working when you graduate. It was a lot easier to be credentialed.
Yeah.
And we graduated. My last day of clinical was on a Thursday. My doctorate did the paperwork, so I was clinically cleared. I went to work on a Friday, and then we graduated Saturday. Nothing to be proud of. I was the poorest one with 3 kids, so everyone else took a week or two or a month off and enjoyed life, not me.
You ended up working at Memorial for how many years before you ended up moving?
5 years. It was a really good anesthesia group, man. They took care of you. I couldn't complain.
Uh-huh.
Dr. Yetter was the president, and now I think they've dispersed and everything. He retired, but then I
Yeah.
started traveling because I thought, there's so much more out there,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to try the locum fields. And Memorial gave you a lot of vacation. The anesthesia group is called Anesthesia Associates. You get like 6 weeks off, so I started traveling. Really liked it, and I said, honey, you're spending too much money with your credit cards, and why don't I do some traveling? Now she doesn't. So I started traveling. North Carolina was wide open. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
paying double and everything. So signed a contract at Novant at Charlotte,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a really cool gig where I only worked like 2 days a week, 16 hours, and I could work 3 or 4 days a week, locums.
Mm.
So I go to Spartanburg. I went to so many different places, sometimes for a week or two before I started at Novant.
Yeah.
And that's when I went to Spartanburg, where I got the idea to do apps.
Yeah. Have you always done a specific type of anesthesia? You mentioned neonatal nursing. Did you try and do pediatric anesthesia when you graduated?
You stay away from those at work. Like I always try and get away from those. I'm okay. I'm comfortable with kids. It's just not my expertise. And we have so many women that are so good at it, guys too, I guess. But they
Yeah.
love their kids. It's
Yeah.
too far. I'm just too old to memorize all these. That's why I made a pediatric table. I can't remember that stuff.
Yeah.
I'll do a kid if I have to, but I usually avoid it if I can.
Yeah. Yeah. I used your pediatric tables today with a 6-month-old. So I mean your app influences pediatric anesthesia all over the nation and who knows the world. So you did something right with that.
Yeah, thanks. There was an app called PD Safe. It was
Mhm.
the first one out, and it had tables, but it was so limited. I said, what? If someone quadrupled the volume of that, it would be good.
Oh yeah.
Just drugs. It had antibiotics, resuscitation,
Mm-hmm.
analgesics, this, that.
Mm-hmm.
So that took me an entire year to do that right. I had to use like 2 or 3 programmers, put all the tables together.
Yeah. So
I wanted to make it super detailed.
speaking of your app, you have multiple apps. You've told me this earlier off the interview that a lot of your apps that you started creating were much smaller apps that ended up becoming like 17 smaller apps that you combined into the one
Yeah,
Vargo
the
Mega App.
first app, this story about an anesthesiologist seeing my BlackBerry. So all these notes, because looking something up because she couldn't find a drip. I go, I think I got it. So I flipped through BlackBerry, and she goes, "Oh my God, where did you get that?" I go, "What?" She goes, "I'll buy that off you." I go, "What?" She goes, "That." I said, "Just my notes." She goes, "How much?" I go, "It's like 700 pages." She goes, "You need to make an app." I said, "Well, what's an app?" And that's when iPhones just came out.
Yeah.
And I blew it off. Then 3 months later, you can start on that app. I'm telling you, you can really help a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I failed a few times. It was back then you couldn't even, it was very hard to find an app programmer. I had to use some guy in India, but I got ripped off a few times. And then and the first one, I lost a whole year time. And I think it took 3 years to get the first one, going through all these programmers. I just wouldn't give up. And then I came out with, I think it was either peds or drips. They came out at the same time, but drip app. There was an anesthesiologist made this really like a drip app. There's only like 3 anesthesia apps and they were terrible. Like one was this one, you didn't even have the drugs on it. You had to push the solvent, the solute, enter this, the weight, and then do these, and it's like, why doesn't someone just make like dopamine, strength, table, simple?
Yeah.
And a lot harder to make not using a database. You had to do all the calculations and everything. It was longer, but I figure if someone could just save 1 or 2 clicks and have the info, it'll probably be better.
Yeah.
User-friendly.
Totally.
So I did that, and I did the peds tables and pediatric. That took a while. It wasn't as detailed as it was now. I redid everything.
Yeah.
And then I did the adult anesthesia, which had adult calculations like a peds table.
Yeah.
Then I forgot what the 4th was, but I was at a convention and I'd see all these people. This one had this one, this one had this one, but didn't have this one. And I was like kind of failing, and these were expensive back then. And then when I was doing case tips, people were lining up to see case tips. That was that book, book I showed you. What did I do with it? I had that book I wrote, and it was almost done. And here it is.
Yeah.
This thing, and people were like, and I was going to name it How We Really Manage the Cases, because the book out that I don't know who wrote it, I'm not going to say it, was so unrealistic with care plans. And people were starting to line up at this convention to see it. Like, man, I might have something here. I've been failing enough.
Yes.
My wife says, why don't you combine all 5 apps into one? I thought, well, I'm not going to name it. And she goes, why don't you name it Mega App? I said, okay, I'll try it. And then it just started taking off.
Yeah. So what year was that you combined it all, and then Vargo Mega App that we know today started being released?
I think it was 5 and 1 back then, probably 8 years ago, 7 years ago. It was probably $15. Those who bought it for $15, they got a good deal, because I just kept adding. Now it's like 17 apps in one.
Yeah. I bought it in 2016 when I started CRNA school. That's when everyone, and even by 2016, which is 2021 now, so 5 years ago, it was already ubiquitous. Like everyone knew when you started CRNA school back then, like you just buy the Vargo app. All of us had it, and we used it throughout the entire program, and I use it even now today.
Well, that's good for me, because I don't spend any money in marketing.
Yeah, I know.
You're a small niche.
I know. We were talking about this earlier. You don't really do many interviews. You don't put your face out there much. Your wife, manages your social media a little bit, and but that's beyond that. Not really. It's just word of mouth promotion, which is an amazing thing.
It was pretty bad. It's a lot of work. Like I had an accountant, and I'm not gonna mention names, but I was getting contacted by the IRS all the time. Because she was, I don't know what she was doing. And I was just over my head with emails, and I started writing the CoExisting, and it was burning out. And so thank God my wife stepped in, and we got a new account. She takes care of that. She takes care of the marketing. She takes care of the emails. Yeah. And so I was able to sit down for the last 3 years and do nothing but coexisting disease.
That's amazing. So you started way back years ago when you created all these apps into one. And then from there, how did you maintain, say this was like 7 years ago, 8 years ago, how did you start maintaining and updating these apps?
Well, every time a new case came out, I would be adding it. Yeah. You travel a lot. Like I used to go to Spartanburg Regional, and they would be doing cases before Novant or other facilities. I thought, wow, I think I'll add that. And they weren't in books yet. And apps are so quick, you could add it within a week. Good programmer. And then of course, when you're a poor writer like me and can't spell, I mean, you could do your edits too. You can't do that with a book.
That's true. Yeah. Which you mentioned I was gonna say, you mentioned your book earlier. If anyone was looking for your book, you don't actually have it on the market now because you pulled it. And so now you just use all that information just in the app. So it's pretty much contained in the app.
I had the book, and it went to Kindle #1 of all the anesthesia books, probably because it was new and it was the only one that was unique. Yeah. Then the app took over, and it was just taken off. It was outselling the book, and I realized, I guess it's the information age where people just don't want to buy books. And then there was like some spelling errors in it. And you can't edit a book. Once it's out, it's out. Yeah. And Amazon was like destroying me with commission rates, even the Kindle version. So we just stopped it. Yeah. And then I just went with, Droid and Apple. That was it.
I'm kind of interested in how your professional life has been since, because you work full time and have maintained pretty much full time work throughout this whole process. How has your professional life been at work with becoming kind of this infamous Matt Vargo, the Vargo app creator.
They don't treat me any different. I get abused all the time, get KY gelled in my room. I mean, they just laugh because I'm just, these CRNAs, some of them can run circles around me. I work with some super smart anesthesiologists, CRNAs, and I'm just one of the people, they look at me like, you really wrote that? And because I screw off a lot at work.
Right. Yeah. So, I
I'm like,
mean, you have a very casual attitude and behavior, which is awesome, because you would think from going over someone who's intelligent enough to create an entire app and go through all these processes and stuff, that you might have kind of an arrogance or a big head on your shoulder, which would be, warranted for all that you've achieved. But you're very down to earth. From talking to you off internet view and stuff, I can tell that you're just a very connected, friendly guy. So that's
yeah,
awesome.
well, I knew growing up I wasn't that bright. I'm just an average student. I had some friends who were really intelligent. One went to Carnegie Mellon. I had a friend who was not great in school. His name was Dennis Furlow. His daughter became a CRNA. His last name was Larson. And but he now owns this huge tool and die shop in New York. I mean, I went to go visit him. I'm like looking up, holy cow! I mean, it's amazing how some smart people are. He could fix anything. And I just was average. I outworked everyone. That's my only strength.
That is quite the strength. And I feel like a lot of good inventors and people who just achieve a lot of things, they do it through work, grit, and, perseverance, and just continuing to put in that energy. And you obviously have. Which brings me to the next topic of your newest app that's been launched recently, which I have. It's your CoExisting Diseases and Surgery app. How long have you been working on that? And what's the process been like?
That took 3 years when I started. I sat down and I decided it was like I work 6 days in a row, get 8 days off at Novant. So I will work, this is serious, like 10 to 12 hours, sometimes 16 hours a day on it. I decided no vacations, no seminars, no holiday trips. I just went to 2 weddings. You can ask my wife. I mean, she just did the yard work, she did everything. She let me do my thing. I had to buy all the subscriptions to, Up to Date, Unbound Medicine, Clinical Anesthesia, Anesthesia Central, Unbound Medicine, and Boston Medical School. I paid thousands of the most recent literature.
Yeah.
And I took the CoExisting book and I just wrote down and I made it better. Like, for example, sometimes I get depressed because pulmonary hypertension, that took me a month and a half to write. Like 15 links or something like that. It's like 100 something pages because it's so complex. There's so many different types. Angioedema, which my wife just posted, that was complex. I thought it'd be one day. That took me like 3 weeks because there's so much about it. That was like 8 files.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
my recent I'm working on is really depressing. I'm writing a new one called Congenital Heart Defects in Peds, Adults, and Pregnancy. It's never been done. It's really hard to get the literature on pregnancy when these kids had like blylactosis shunt or tetralogy flow, what the issues are when they're pregnant, they're pregnant and stuff.
Right.
How the plan's going to be. So I had to download like a DeBakey Heart Institute symposium and recent literature, which is like a few months old, what doctors saying. In the last 3 weeks, I've been working on Fontan circulation.
Oh,
Pregnancy adults.
you're giving me hives thinking back to boards and preparing with things.
Well, I'm going to simplify it all. I have my own graphics. I've been working on this for about 2 years. I'm going to add it to CoExisting. And it's got all the peds care plans for like docs that do the hearts or CRNAs that do peds hearts. It has all the pictures of every heart defect, how to prepare them, what the issues are when they're adults for non-cardiac surgery and when they're pregnant.
Yeah. What I like about your app is that it not only has the ability for you to quick reference, say you just need to reference neostigmine dosages or something like that. You can do that very quickly. But if you also want to just sit down and for like 3 hours, just read information like it was a textbook, you have tons of information like that. That is literally just like textbooks that.
That took 7 years. You know what's going to be really good? And I haven't told too many people, I'm having the app completely rebuilt in a country called Morocco. So what happens when I built the app and added app to app to app, 17 apps, you don't have one universal search engine. And I always get complaints like, I can't find some. I go, well, that's an OB. That's in the OB regional section. I can't find it. So that's in that section. So now always you can have one central universal search engine. So say you have a kid that weighs 16 kilos. You don't even have to go to the PEDS app. You just type in 16 and there's a table right there.
Oh, that'll be awesome. Because it is one thing is you kind of get to there's so much information that you kind of have to get a feel for it, navigating like where would this information actually be in the
Mhm.
app.
People search and not find it. And that's just when you add app after app on the same app, you can't have one search engine. You can have a search engine within each section. So
Yeah.
now I'm having completely rebuilt. And
Mhm.
it's going to be on one program now. So when I have one program rather than two programmers, I don't have to contact this program and that program to add to the Droid and the Apple, because I get complaints that the Droid app might be missing two cases because this guy didn't get the email I sent him. So now they're going to be identical.
Yeah,
With
totally.
one programmer or one or two programmers, is one, and then they just tweak it for a Droid and tweak it for Apple, and it's identical. Same
So,
program.
what about while you've been doing all these apps, what has been like a struggle with you? Have you had any things come up professionally or personally that's been difficult to deal with while trying to maintain all these apps and your professional life?
Well, it does suck up your time. You don't have a personal life, that's for sure. Like
Yeah.
I always tell people, work. I have no life or no future. I'll
Oh,
bring weekends and type, and I'll say, "What did you do this weekend?" And I said, "Worked," and they like might make a comment. I said, "Well, if you weren't out partying and fornicating, you'd be able to write apps too. Give up your life. It's not fun."
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
got to the point the last 3 years. I mean, I'm gaining weight. I'm getting Achilles tendonitis. I mean, it's spending 10 hours a day on every off day, even today.
Yeah.
So I'm going to cut back probably this month and or next month and go 2 days a month PRN. We're going to move to Chattanooga, and I'm
Oh,
going to concentrate full time on the app and maybe do 4 or 6 hours a day rather than 10 hours on my off days.
that's awesome. Yeah. So you're finding that good work-life balance and being able to work a little clinically, but also work on the app and enjoy your free time. I mean, you've earned
Yeah,
it.
I have to, or I'm heading in a bad direction. You get old and work too much. It's not good.
Yeah. You want
So
to take it
it's
easy.
being rebuilt, and the CoExisting is going to have that huge congenital heart defect. And then we start marketing more to the unfortunate that PAs, nurse practitioner, med school students are now buying it.
Yeah.
So I'm blessed it went to number one and number two with Apple. The
Yeah.
because they told me there were 73,000 medical apps, and I hit number one and two grossing.
Yeah. I mean, you've done quite well for yourself. I mean, obviously from you talking, people understand how hard you've worked and how many years, decades that you've been investing in your clinical career and just all these inventions that you've created and just preparing you for this stage of your life. So you deserve to take, some time off and, you know,
Yeah.
not have
After
to
you
struggle.
fail enough, you're bound to get it right once. Like I told you, that IV pole bracket I invented.
Uh,
Right when I was ready to start pushing that, the bed started coming out with IV poles on them.
yeah.
The transport table, because we'd always transport these patients. There's nowhere to put the monitor. So I designed this thing I was going to push that. And that year, the beds came out with them. It's like with a transport, like they just beat you. You got to be really fast.
Yeah. Matt, I mean, everybody does this where they're with their friends and like, you know what, we should create Bluetooth EKG stickers. And like they all have these mindsets of like no wires in the OR. And we always think of those things, but you're the kind of person who actually thinks of them and then actually will go forward and start trying to patent them and create them and actually come up with an invention, a physical, tangible thing and market it. So
Yeah, it
that's
doesn't hurt
impressive.
to fail. I mean, this is that chest tube embolectomy device I was showing you earlier. Invented it. I was working ECMO, and all these chest tubes would always get clotted on these transplant patients.
Mm-hmm.
So I came up with a method that I can declot any chest tube without decreasing air thoracic pressure, without stripping, and you go down like a suction, like a Ballard suction catheter with a balloon and pull the clot out.
Uh-huh.
And I took it to the company, they loved it, and then they did their marketing research, and they found that they found it only occurs with transplant patients that keep their chest tube in for days. It's too small of a market. So I spent thousands there. You fail enough, you're bound to get it done once, right once.
Yeah. So what is your future plans? You said that you're moving and you're trying to cut back your hours and stuff. Do you have any other big apps or inventions you're working on? Or are you just going to be trying to maintain and
Completely redoing the Mega App, because a lot of it, when I wrote it, I was living by myself in Charlotte. My wife and kids were in Chattanooga.
Mhm.
I had the spare time in the middle of the night. I'd be up at 3 o'clock typing, and I'm not a very good writer. I think part of it's sloppy. I've
Yeah.
had editors. So now the way I'm building the app, I have a professional CRNA editor. He's retired. He writes, and then I send it to this programmer. And so I'm redoing all that to do it right. And then
Nice.
CoExisting, I'm going to start marketing. to the other professions more because I don't market, and that
Yeah.
should help. And then just make it better. Just keep
Good.
doing updates.
Okay. And if people were trying to find your apps, where would they find them?
They can just go on Google and enter Vargo or
Mm-hmm.
anesthesia.
Yep. They're on
Apple and
Apple.
yeah.
They're on Android, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, either of those, you can go on there, find them, and I'm just telling you, you won't regret using them. I use them. I recommend them to pretty much, if anybody in anesthesia asks me what's one single app that you would have, it would be yours. So I recommend it highly, rep it all the time.
Oh, good. Thanks.
So before we close, I wanted you to have a chance to talk to people who are maybe entrepreneurs out there or inventors or someone who thinks like you do, where they want to do more than just clinical anesthesia. They want to actually create things or improve things. What advice would you give to people with that kind of
Well,
mindset?
you got to be fast
Mm,
because I mean it's so competitive.
yeah.
Ignore the haters.
Mm,
I've been told so many times, even by some anesthesiologists, yeah, you know, we're going anywhere. No one's going to buy that.
mm,
There's a lot of haters out there.
yeah.
If you're motivated enough, I mean, don't. It's like in sports. Most everyone we know has played sports. You can't win every game.
Right.
You lose one, so what? You go to the next game.
Mm,
You get your ass whooped in a fight, or you go to the next fight. You know,
yeah.
don't be afraid of losing. Don't be afraid of failing.
Mm,
More people fail before they win, and you only have to win once.
mm-hmm. That's
You
awesome.
have to get it right once. It's all you need. It doesn't mean grades. I had the lowest GPA.
Yeah.
You just have to be able to put work in.
Mm,
I mean, anyone could write an app.
I like
All
that.
you
I
have to
like
do.
that. Yeah, put your nose to the grindstone, put in the work, and don't let people put you down. Like you said, people will naysay and tell you you can't do it. You ignore them and you go show them that you can do it. I
Mhm.
like that. And I think you are a shining example of some of the tenacious spirit that CRNAs have and kind of the from humble beginnings that a lot of CRNAs come from that end up becoming huge things and making impacts on the world of anesthesia. So,
Yeah, don't be afraid to take a chance. I
yeah.
mean, a lot of people fail and they're going to keep failing, but yeah, it's just you hit it once. That's it.
Anything that you want to say to the YouTube family here before we go?
No, but I like what you're doing. Spread the word. You know, putting all these entrepreneurs on, that's good. It probably gives people motivation.
Yeah.
If you screw up like me with a 3.01 GPA, with GREs that weren't so great, but some schools will take people that look more motivated and have done more than others.
I will.
Tennessee gave me a shot. I graduated in the middle. You know, I guess I'm doing okay now.
And you did amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Vargo, thank you for coming on, and we will see you next time.
All right. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.